Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to the face in the card making space and another STAMPtember exclusive video. For those that are new or not aware, during the month of September, Simon Says Stamp collaborates with a ton of other crafty brands and throws the biggest stamping party of the year, STAMPtember. And throughout this month, limited edition exclusive collaboration sets are released. They are all one and done. When they sell out, they are not restocked. However, each brand that is collaborating with Simon Says Stamp has their own product line with tons of fabulous products, and I link to those product lines in all of my collaboration videos. Today's, it's going to be popular. I know it's going to be extra popular. It is with Hero Arts, and Hero Arts has been around. They are basically the OG of the stamping world. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. I love Hero Arts. Again, I don't have enough hours in the day, and I haven't figured out how to clone myself yet, so I can't use all the products, but I love Hero Arts. And this set is, to note though, with this specific collaboration set, there are several options this time. So just make sure to check that out because it is a large set. It is a 6x8 set. There are options for the coordinating wafer dies, which is kind of new, but I think that Simon Says Stamp sort of broke it up a bit. So you could go all in and get the big set with all the coordinating wafer dies, which is a little bit pricier because it's a lot of wafer dies. Or again, there's options. I'll have them all linked. So far, as of me recording this, the stamps and die sets, like the combos, are the ones that are first to go. I think a lot of y'all are on the same page as me. It's like, if we don't have to fussy cut, why would we add dies to cart? So just an FYI, but there are options, which I love. And like always, I will have links not only to those options, but to the STAMPtember collaboration category, because some are still available. Again, as of filming this intro, it just kind of depends. And then I will, of course, have links to everything I used in this video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keep my channel going. That's all I got to say at the moment. Let's get into making this card. So this is the Hero Arts Celebrate STAMPtember collaboration stamp set. And I decided to do no line coloring, which I don't do very often because no line coloring takes a decent chunk of time. And I, one, am not a patient person, and two, I don't have time, but I just had to do it. So you can see partly when you actually see the set, if you click on the link, why I love it. I won't call this like a large floral because it's not large florals, like, you know, big, huge A2 size plus floral cluster, but there's decent sized flowers in this set and a whole bunch of sentiments. And I chose one of the florals and I stamped it onto some Arches cold press watercolor paper with antique linen distress ink. And this first little bit here, this is real time, because I am going to super speed this up. This took me a while to watercolor. Because yeah, no line coloring. You gotta take your time. You gotta let things dry and not work on the exact same areas next to each other. So I started with the flower center and then I went on to the stem and the leaves. And since the leaves didn't overlap at all, I could do them all at once. I'm using my little Altenew watercolor palette and some Altenew watercolor brushes, which I've used these brushes in many videos over the last few months. I bought these, I forget when I bought these brushes, a while ago. I'm really liking them. I'm kind of picky about my brushes, and these ones I've been really happy with. They compare to some of the higher end brushes I have. So, like I said, when you're doing no line coloring, you have to work on especially a floral, you work on opposite petals, etc., because each area needs to be dry. And because I'm impatient, I was also using my heat tool to speed up the drying so that things don't run into each other. And kind of painted my first layer, and it looks pretty flat. The thing, especially with no line coloring, is you need to build up the depth and dimension to get the detail going. and to give it more life in a sense. And while I say all that, this is not my forte. I've done very few no line coloring examples over the years because, like I said, I don't have the time or the patience, but there are many makers out there that do just phenomenal no line coloring. I highly recommend checking some out. One is Debby Hughes. She doesn't do videos anymore. Oh, and then I made a mistake. I'll get back to Debby in a second. I dropped my brush. That was great. Made, got it right on there with that wonderful like Cosmic Berry color watercolor, which, if you've ever listened to me go on about like pinks and reds and what a pain they are, perfect color to drop on there. I made it work. I kind of sopped it up with clean water and a piece of paper towel. I dried it, and then I used my sand eraser, and I got most of it off. But thankfully, you guys know, I was already planning on adding splatter, so I will creatively kind of cover that mess up. And later on, I dropped my brush again. And, like, I was having a time. Anyway, back to Debby. Debby Hughes does wonderful watercolor. Wonderful. She doesn't do videos anymore. It's been a couple years since her last video, but she's got like many on her YouTube channel. There, drop my brush again. Great job, Amy. And yeah, I hope someday she's able to like come back doing videos. She still posts, like she posts on her blog and on social media and that. And yeah, her watercoloring is just inspiring. And I know there's many other makers out there that do like no line work a lot. She just is like forefront because I was on her YouTube channel just the other day, just feeling nostalgic. And I was like, man, I wish she was still doing videos because they were some of my favorites. And I learned a lot. In fact, like the whole splattering and all of that, a lot of that I learned from her. So if I have space in the description box, I will link her YouTube channel. But yeah, Debby Hughes, she's amazing. So after I was done all my watercoloring, I took some color pencils to add in a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail. I still went fairly light-handed on this. I don't use color pencils much at all anymore. Those that have followed me for a really long time, this used to be like my only coloring method way back in the day. I quit using color pencils because I can't handle it. My hands like just ache trying because you need to apply a decent amount of pressure, and I couldn't do it anymore. But I've never got rid of my color pencils because they'll always be near and dear to me, and they don't go bad, so I keep them. And they're great for things like this, just adding detail, little bits of detail, things like that. So that's what I did, just to kind of finish everything off. I added little bits of detail, and then I took my white color pencil and just used that just very lightly, just in the lighter areas to add that little bit of a highlight. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to add some splatter because one, need to cover out. It doesn't look too bad here on camera, but in real life, like it was obvious. So, and besides, did I need a mistake or an excuse to add splatter? No, I was going to do it anyway. So I just used the watercolors to add some splatter. So I put my little panel into my splat box, swirled my brush around, added a bit of splatter, added a bit more, kind of looked at it a bit, used the brush to strategically place a couple larger splatters to cover up the mistake. And yeah, that just worked. And then I decided to also add a little bit of white gouache splatter just to fully, finish everything off, tie it all together, So I let most of the splatter dry, which didn't take long. And then I just took some of my Altenew white gouache, put that on a palette, watered this down. And then I'll add this with my fan brush and just kind of splatter this across this panel. And then let this fully dry before I die cut it. Now, I don't have the coordinating wafer dies. If I had had the coordinating wafer dies, I wouldn't even have worried about the mess I made because I just would have die cut this flower. It would have been fine. But I wasn't in the mood to fussy cut it, and my whole plan was to die cut it just with one of these basic rectangle wafer dies. So that's what I did. Put that through my die cut machine and die cut this panel. And then I pulled out a piece of Altenew's Cosmic Berry cardstock. And this cardstock is a little bit lighter weight. This is 80-pound cardstock. So I didn't feel the need to mist the back of it like I normally do when I run things through with my embossing folders, because adding a little mist, just a light mist of water, softens the paper fibers. You get a better embossed impression. But for this specific folder, which is the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Tufts embossing folder, I didn't feel it was necessary to spray it with water. So I embossed the cardstock with that. And then I used Altenew's Fresh Dye ink in Cosmic Berry to blend all around the perimeter of this embossed panel. And this will dry back because I'm doing color on color because it's the same color cardstock, same color ink. It'll still show up, but always remember that when you're blending, you know, similar colors on similar cardstock or the same color on same cardstock, always let it dry. You know, test it out first or just let it fully dry, because you'd be surprised when the ink is fully dry how it'll either just completely disappear or it'll just be a lot later than you expect. So I added the Cosmic Berry, and then I actually added a bit of black ink, just very lightly around the perimeter. It just gives it that extra something. Set all that aside. Pulled out a piece of black cardstock. I'm going to put that in my MISTI, and I'm going to heat emboss one of the sentiments from the Celebrate set. And I used my anti-static powder tool on the cardstock, and then I stamped the sentiment with clear embossing ink. Added detail white embossing powder. I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. My original plan was to just trim this down with my paper trimmer, and then instead I fussy cut the sentiment and cut them all apart, which I'll show how I assemble that on the finished card. So melted that with my heat tool, and then I used my microfiber cloth to remove that excess anti-static powder. And then while I've got my MISTI out again, I am going to stamp the inside of my card. So my card base is a top folding A2 white note card. And I'm going to stamp that same flower on the inside of the card. And I'm just going to use a lighter shade of ink for this. So I'm using Altenew's Rose Quartz ink, which is from the same quad that the Cosmic Berry is in. So just very light, just light and delicate. And then I took another sentiment from the Celebrate set, lined that up, made sure it was straight. And then I'm going to ink that up with that same just jet black ink. So get that stamped. And then I pulled out some twine from my stashes, some Mayarts, ivory twine. Wrap that around my embossed panel, as always. You start the knot, and then you use the reverse tweezers to hold it in place so I can sit and fiddle and zhuzh the bow till I get it the way I want it. Once I'm happy with it, pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again, fiddle with it some more, and then trim off the excess. And then for my little floral piece, I'm going to adhere that with some Big Mama foam tape. So it'll pop it up just a smidge, gives it just a little bit of dimension. Get that into place. And then I'm going to adhere my card front to my card base with craft tacky glue. Had a little bit of a clog. It happens. Removed it. Put my glue on the back. And then I can adhere this to my card base. And then the sentiment, like I said, I separated it into individual words. And I'm going to adhere that to the card front with just some thin foam squares. And I'm going to just trim them down so that I can fit them on the back of these little pieces. So got the little foam squares into place, and then I can stick these onto the panel because I didn't want to cover up any of this image. I was like, I spent a good amount of time coloring that image, you know, and I went through trials and tribulations of dropping my brush and nearly ruining it. So I was like, I'm not covering up nothing. So adhered my sentiment just like so, and then pulled out some bling from my stash. This is Simon Says Stamp's Starshine confetti. So sprinkled a few of those around the card, and then I'm just going to adhere these into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And then once the glue dries, this card is complete. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all of the things in the description box below the video. So if you just expand the description box, everything will be there. The links to all the things, and my supply list, links to my socials, etc., etc. It'll all be there. And yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you all so much. Thumbs up, comment, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. It helps a ton, and I just appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!